Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
After what's been the dirtiest, most depressing campaign in history, Americans have to choose between what many see as the entitlement candidate, Hillary, of the Clinton dynasty, and a demagogue, Donald Trump, whose only response to accusations that he's a serial abuser of women and a tax avoider is to claim that he's the victim of an establishment conspiracy. Thank goodness it's not our decision. So, who will it be and what does it mean for us? Nigel, you've been across to see Trump in action. I'm not 100% certain how much advice you've given to him, but you've given a bit. But can I just ask you, look, this is a man who has swaggered on film about groping women. He's threatened revenge against other women who accuse him of violating them. He won't make full financial disclosures. He's even threatened not to respect the election result if he thinks in some way it's been rigged. So what do you see in him?
Well, I don't support everything he said or stands for. I haven't even endorsed him. What I have said is I think his direction of travel is right on some of the biggest issues that face the world and indeed his country too.
So what is I mean, because he doesn't believe in free trade, which is, as I understand it, you believe in.
He believes in nation-state democracy. He believes in sensible border controls. He believes that ISIS is a threat we should face up to, and he believes we should stop getting involved in an endless series of wars in the Middle East that's made life worse, not better. Simple as that. And in terms of direction of travel, I think with those things, he's going the right way.
Jan, you didn't start off as a Trump supporter, but you are now.
Well, I didn't support any candidate when I was in the role of worldwide vice president until we had a nominee. You know,
right.
I just supported all of them as they kept falling out.
Quite a lot of Republicans have backed away from him. Why haven't you?
Well, the establishment Republicans have backed away from him. The ones that don't want the system to change, the ones that don't see how much they have failed in our government and how dysfunctional it is.
But Jan, over here, what do we see? We see this idea to build this enormous wall, you know, to keep out Mexicans. We see him saying he doesn't respect the great institutions of America. What is it that you see in him?
Well, you know, it's interesting that you say that's what you see. I can understand why that's what you see, because the liberal media only presents those things, and I am so tired of hearing it because it's the only things you guys keep bringing up.
So tell us the other things about it.
So have you thought about the fact that he is the right leader at the right time to do things in the right way? And I bet that comes as a huge shock to you.
No, it doesn't. But give us some detail.
I will give you some details, and let's just look at his actions already. Okay, he entered politics, didn't know a thing. Okay, he discovers that he needs to win delegates. He just thought, you know, if he got the votes in the primaries. So what does he do? He finds the best guy to do that. He eliminates 16 people, and he takes over. Then, what does he discover? A couple of people tell him, you know, you really are messing up with your mouth. You know, you're kind of offending people, and you've got too many truth temperers around you. You need somebody who's going to tell you the truth. So what did he do? He put in 2 people who are not beholden to him, who are wealthy in their own right, who have known him, think out of the box. 2 days later, he came out and he said, I understand that I have offended some people and I really regret it. That was step number 1. I have watched his behavior very, very carefully because I have had some concerns after the convention, and he keeps changing. He is sticking to his points. He's clear.
Well, what does he stand for? You've told us that he's learning about how to be a candidate.
Well, no, he's learned how to run a political campaign, and it's
not the same thing as running America, though, is it?
No. But you know what it shows is his leadership ability and his ability to learn and his ability to succeed quickly in an area that he might not have had the experience in.
He's not an intern. You know that, don't you?
I'm going to remember that line for the next time. But you know what?
He'd
He's
stay
a
away from
businessman.
Bill if he was.
Yeah.
But, you know, what you're describing is someone who basically is picking it up as he goes along.
Well, why? Is something wrong with that?
Well, there
if
is
he's
something
not
wrong with
been
that,
in
actually, which is
politics?
you've used the phrase the establishment twice, and this is a thing that Nigel does too. The language of revolution and of the left has been appropriated by the right, so that they talk a lot about the establishment and the political classes, so that they can sound like the Mavericks and sound like the people of revolution. It's all rubbish, of course. Trump is a member of the establishment.
Okay.
He owns like 5 jets and 1,800 hotels. Okay, he's one of the richest people ever. He is a man of power. He is a man of the establishment. He's not a poor Mexican.
Okay, so if you listen to him,
Yeah, I
he
have
has
listened to him.
said, well, no, because
I have, honestly.
what you're saying
As a comedian, I listen to him like all the time.
I bet.
Trust me.
But you're making it as a negative. He has said, I have been an insider, and now I'm an outsider because I'm going to change that system. And that is one of the key things that our system does need to be changed. You know what I wish that politicians would do? I wish they would wear race car drivers' uniforms. You know, it's all white.
We all wish that, Janet.
Wait a minute. And then they had to wear the emblems of all their corporate sponsors, everyone they take money from, so you would see how much our politicians are bought by lobbyists, by corporations, by associations, and they are not their own.
Right,
Well,
and
you
he's
have
bought
Nigel
just by
Rothmans,
Putin,
wouldn't
is
he?
he? Or-
Yeah. One or two well-known brewers, probably, but...
What I'm worried about is the 16 people Trump has eliminated. I mean, what has happened to them? Where are they buried?
I think you'll find Vladimir Putin knows where.
Well, you know.
But one of the, Emily, one of the striking things about all the polls is that the American people don't really love either of these candidates. There's an enormous amount of disillusionment both with Hillary and with Donald Trump, and for many people it's the choice between two evils. Why do you think the American system appears to have broken down to the extent it has?
I think that it has got extraordinarily aggressive and very, very divisive, and I think you can see them campaigning entirely on the basis of
Were the Democrats wrong to pick Hillary, do you
personalities.
think?
No, I don't think so, because I think that she is... I mean, she doesn't need to learn on the job. You know,
She sure does. I don't know any of her accomplishments.
You know, you can... if you
Labels,
were
activities,
to...
travel.
She can just go on failing, can't she?
Yeah, she can.
Well,
Thank
I
you,
think
Nigel.
that there have been a number of things that she has succeeded on. And I think that it's important when we are putting our faith in someone who will have such an influential role in the Middle East,
Don't you
who will
think
have the
she's
nuclear
crooked?
codes,
No.
who will...
You don't?
No,
who
on
will
what
be
basis?
leader of the Western world.
On what basis?
You know, I think all of these things need to be done by people who have experience and who understand, and not someone who learns on the job. I think my problem with I think my problem with Trump as well is the personality, is the way in which whenever he makes a mistake, he digs a deeper and deeper hole for
Well,
himself.
he had been, but he's...
but he does, and that's the problem, you know. And so if he was to get himself into a difficult situation in the Middle East, or if he was to get himself into a difficult economic situation, he would just continue making it worse, and that worries me very much indeed. And I just think that the idea that this person might have their finger on the nuclear button worries me profoundly. And when it comes to Britain, I think that it's going to affect us in two ways. I think the things that he said about NATO are very worrying. You know, I think that we rely on NATO for our security, and he essentially has said that he can see no reason why the Europeans can't look after themselves and will be pulling out of the NATO alliance, which is something which is profoundly worrying. And also this
And just
idea
on
of
that-
perfectionism.
But, you know, Emily,
protectionism
here's
and
the thing,
pulling
is that-
out of free trade.
But you know what?
Wherever
Here's the
ends.
thing about Donald Trump. He has been so brilliant at manipulating the media, and you pick
I
on
pick on
wait a
things that
minute.
he's said and I hold him to account, yeah. Because
right.
that's what politics ought to be about. It ought to be about what are you going to do and how can you change people's lives. It shouldn't be about your hairstyle. It shouldn't be about what colours you wear. It should be what are your policies and what are you going to do. That's what it should be.
Emily's right about protectionism, but it's not just Donald Trump. Whoever wins this election, you know, Barack Obama got into a load of trouble for saying we're going to be at the back of the queue. Yeah. But with either of these guys, there isn't going to be a queue. There aren't going to be any free trade deals. Hillary Clinton has been dragged off to the left by Bernie Sanders.
But wait, you're
Donald
forgetting
Trump's
about our
not interested in free
political
trade
system.
either. You know,
But Tim, we've got
Britain
checks
is not
and
going to
balances.
benefit from either of these people.
We've got Congress. One of the congressmen was over here on July 4th after the referendum, and I had quite a few Brits around as well, and they said, what are we going to do about trade? You know, the best thing Obama did was to come over here and say you needed to remain, because with Netanyahu, he tried to screw him up, and he tried to defeat Brexit, and it was the best thing he did, because it made people see how some of these politicians in power want to influence and think they know better. And that was what you said, Emily, that really it gets my ire up that somehow you think politicians are smarter than when the public has spoken by how they voted. And you don't take that into consideration.
I don't think that's true, and I don't think that's fair. I personally think that politicians have to continue to listen to the people, and they have to learn from the people, and they have to make sure that, you know, they go out and they talk to as many people as possible, and they keep their ears open.
But it's not okay for Donald Trump to learn on the job?
No, because I think you also need to have some experience, and actually, I don't think that that's a bad thing. I think that, with all due respect, we have lots of people who have journalist backgrounds who go into politics who think all I need to do is I need to be able to write a good racy column which will get people's attention, or in Trump's case, you know, go onto television and say outrageous things, get lots of people's attention, and then suddenly I can be president.
Also,
there is more to it than
I'm not
that.
planning to do that.
What has Donald learnt exactly? Because it seems to me that he's learnt mainly to wear a baseball hat to cover the fact that his hair looks like shredded wheat. That seems to be the main thing that he's learned.
You know, off camera, I can tell you quite a few things that would help your comedic act.
Okay.
I'd be happy to do that.
I'd really like to hear.
What I would like to do is not discuss what he's learned, but for once have an opportunity to not rehash all these other things, but get some people to understand some things about him. You know, you hear build a wall because he speaks in concrete language. He wants to stop the illegal aliens for coming in.
So it's a metaphor.
Okay.
It's not a real wall. Because every time anybody asks me about him, he says it's a real wall.
He speaks in
All right,
concrete language.
Okay, here's
Come on, it's a big, beautiful wall, isn't it? I'm
with
very
a big,
excited about
beautiful
seeing
door. All right, here's another thing.
door?
Here's another thing, is that it's very hard for people over here to understand what's wrong with Obamacare, because it is not NHS. It was supposed to be affordable insurance. It has become unaffordable insurance, and it only insures 20 million people of a country of 320 million. Even Bill Clinton came out and said, this is the craziest thing where you pay more every month and you get less and less. My friends in Arizona, a family of 3, it has gone up 116%. So he now has $2,100 a month he pays just to have the right to have insurance. Each member of the family must pay $5,000 after the $24,000 they pay all year of their own medical expenses before the insurance kicks in. Donald Trump wants to create a competitive market because I live in California. I can't buy insurance from an insurance provider in Illinois because I can't cross state lines. He wants to get rid of those state lines. And that is one of the things that then makes it far more affordable.
And if I could just ask, Nigel, because in your life, if all goes to plan, you'll be looking for new employment quite soon. Would you work for him?
Well, I am booked on the plane Wednesday morning, so we'll just have to see.
You are booked on Wednesday
I'm
morning?
going over there. Now, I don't know what's going to happen. All I can say is
Has he had any conversations with him about working for him?
This election's very simple.
I think that's a yes.
It's rather like Brexit. It's, do you want to change, or do you want to stick exactly as you are? That's what it's all about.
But you have you've obviously had conversations with him. You've had conversations with him. What's the role going to be? You're going to be...
No. Well, I mean, if he did offer me a job, I would quite like to be his ambassador to the European Union. I think I do that job very well.
So, Jan, does he have that much of a sense of humour? That's the question.
That's really gone down well with her. She doesn't have to tell you anything to me off camera, Nigel. I don't think she can recover from that.
So this will be the proof that we're living in the sort of post-truth, or is it the post-reality world or the post-truth world?
Post-truth. I think that's the problem. I think that, if we end up with our politics being about post-truth politics, if we end up with our politics being a politics where we don't need to hear from experts, where our politics can be just pushed down to do we want change or do we want the same? I mean, the American elections are about more than that. It's about more than that, and people do need to think about more because because the choices that you make can make a profound difference.
Okay.
I think looking at it, and obviously we're a long way away, but
Yeah,
I think the way in which we look at the United States and look at the way in which it is being so divided by this election, and some of the things that Donald Trump has said, seems to me to divide a country very much.
Emily, I'm going to be rude to both of you because unfortunately we are now out of time. So a bit to chew over. General election. Would you welcome an early general election?
Oh yeah, listen, I'm in the opposition. We want to be in government. Of course we want an election. But it's really a question of what are they so afraid of? All we want to know is generally what it is that they want to negotiate on. What's their, what's the ballpark? There are so many different versions of the way in which we can leave the European Union. It's not good enough for people to say, we won on 52%, therefore we should be allowed to go into a locked room, fight it out amongst ourselves, keep it secret, and leave Britain in whatever way we want. Trust us, we can do it right. Because there's lots of different ways of doing it. And actually, we are a democracy. And of course, the British people have said that we should leave the European Union. We will go with our instructions, but we want to leave the European Union in the best way.
Can I just ask you one thing before we pick up on those arguments, which is yesterday, my very professional ITV colleague, Libby Wiener, asked exactly the same question of Jeremy Corbyn about whether he would welcome an election next year, and he said to her that she was harassing him. That's a bit odd, isn't it?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know the circumstances in which she asked that
Well,
question.
she was asking it in a public place, so you'd just given a speech.
Was that when he was just leaving somewhere and trying to get somewhere else?
But I mean, this is what journalists do. We ask questions.
Yeah, I know. And you ask questions at all sorts of times when we do get
at a public meeting.
I know. Well, I don't know. I've just told you. We have an election. We'll go for it because we want to be in government, and certainly we think we'll do a better job than this lot.
Nigel Farage, do you think that in some ways the Brexit negotiations would be undermined if Parliament debates what Brexit should mean?
The reason Corbyn couldn't answer the question was because he basically said in the Sunday Mirror yesterday morning that he wanted to mandate the government to say, look, these are the terms. We will not vote for you to invoke Article 50 unless you do these specific things, including the weasel word, access to the single market. Now, we've seen from Ed Miliband, we've seen from Nick Clegg, we've even seen from some Conservative backbench MPs an argument made that, yes, of course we voted to leave the European Union, but we didn't vote to leave the single market, and it's very important that Theresa May negotiates to keep us in. So that's my big fear. My big fear now
So you're with Theresa May on this?
Look, everything she's said thus far has been great. The problem is, her record as Home Secretary, having said great things, didn't justify what was said at the annual Tory party conference.
Point, Nigel? You're very upset about this ruling, but this ruling says that they will have to be more transparent about what they want. That therefore, the government can't just, as you said, go into a locked room, and they'll have to tell us what they're going to do. Now, why don't you like that?
That would be crackers. You do not go into.
Why are you trusting the Conservative Party?
You do not go in. I'd rather not, but that's what we've got.
No, but that's
you
the point.
cannot go into a negotiation of any kind, whether it's a treaty change, fundamental treaty change relationship with Europe, or a business negotiation. You don't lay your cards on the table.
Well, no, it's not a game of poker.
Before you go in the room.
You can. It's not a game of poker.
Believe you me, in Brussels, all of it is behind doors. Secret negotiation.
Even if it is a game
Are you serious?
Yeah, absolutely.
On April the 1st...
There is no transparency there at all.
The 27 countries that we're negotiating will all be sending us emails telling us what the British negotiating position is. They'll all know, and we will have to find out from them. That's what you're painting.
You cannot.
This isn't right.
It would be a disaster. From Theresa May's perspective, to say before she goes in what our minimum expectations are. If she puts down our minimum, it will in effect become the maximum, and she won't get the best deal.
Tim, I mean, you in your book, write about those failed David Cameron negotiations to get us, or they weren't failed, we got a deal, but many people said he didn't get the right kind of deal from the rest of the European Union on a new settlement for the UK with the rest of the EU. What lessons do you think we can draw from the way he handled those negotiations?
Well, two lessons, and I think Theresa May has learnt them. The first is that you don't lay it all out in public, because if you do, they chip away at it and you'll only ever get less than you've said in public. And the second is that you have to go really big. You have to ask for a load of stuff that's almost completely impossible to ask for and that you don't think you're probably going to get. And if you go 10 out of 10 on your asks, you might get 7. Cameron was not prepared to do that. He thought, if I do that, I'm going to get eviscerated by the public. Instead, he went, oh, I'm going to ask for 4 things and get a slightly useless version of all 4 of them. And in the end, that wasn't enough for the British public. But May has learnt that lesson, which is why she's not saying much. But she said so very little that to keep most MPs satisfied, she could actually say just a little bit more. I mean, the other day, a cabinet minister was on the shows on a Sunday and said, well, we would like to have tariff-free access to Europe. This was regarded as some great revelation. Now, if that's the level of stuff that people are going to be satisfied with, Theresa May can satisfy them really, really easily by just saying a tiny bit more.
Wasn't there one other thing, though? Wasn't there one other lesson? Which was that when David Cameron went to Europe, they saw him coming and they knew that he was not really speaking on behalf of the whole of Britain. He was speaking on behalf of the Tory party, who were going towards a general election. And they saw that he wasn't really speaking on behalf of the nation as a whole, and so they didn't really take him seriously. And isn't the lesson to learn that she ought to go with the backing of the country and going with the best deal, you know, going for the best deal, and to talk about it in general terms and to get our support rather than just saying take it on trust?
You could argue that she's going to go off to Brussels this time, Emily, with the support of quite a lot of Labour voters who voted out in the referendum.
Yeah, we voted.
And the one red line that we do know about is that she wants to cut immigration, and that's something that your party leader doesn't want to do, and a lot of your voters do. So I think she's got more support than David Cameron had already.
And I think also what the whole country wants, whether they voted to leave or to remain, is to make sure that our economy is all right. You know, nobody needs to lose their job. You know, we need to do this. We need to do this negotiation in the best way possible for the economy. And the concern is you know, are they boxing themselves in, or do they have at the forefront of their mind the importance of keeping the economy, you know,
so
afloat?
does that mean, Emily, you want to stay in a single market? Because that's the language that's being used. Certainly that's what Ed Miliband has said. Certainly many of your own backbenchers have suggested that. Is that your position?
I think my position is that I don't want a worse future for my kids or for anybody else's.
No, none of us do, actually.
Exactly, nobody does.
Amazing, isn't it?
No, exactly. But that's where I start. But that's, you know, but that is a fundamental difference. I think that our first priority should be looking after the economy, which means making sure that we can continue to trade. You know, the vast majority of our trade
is it membership
with the European
membership of the single market?
Well, it's how you access the single market. You know, what conditions are we going to be? Are we going to have to pay tariffs? What will all the conditions be that they will put on our goods? You know, how will we continue to trade?
So I take it it's a yes then, really, is it?
No, what it is the British people voted to leave the European Union, but what was not clear was what our continuing relationship with Europe should be. And when we begin our negotiations, we should begin front and centre with the idea we look after the economy. The first job of a government is to make sure its people are safe and secure, but the second job is to look after the economy.
We voted to leave the single market.
And
it could not have been clearer. Both sides of the argument. Every major player from both Leave and Remain said, if we vote to leave, we are leaving the single market, and we're seeing...
I'm not sure that's right, actually. I really don't think that's right. It's not what Boris said, it's not what Michael Gove said.
Yes,
no, it isn't.
I'm very sorry, Mr Peston, but it absolutely clearly is.
They absolutely talked.
Cameron and George Osborne.
Cameron, Osborne and Prest on another channel, both Boris and Gove said yes when asked, does it mean we're leaving the single market? There should be no confusion about this. What is happening is our political class are following on from what's happened in Denmark and Ireland. They want to reverse the referendum result, and we are not going to let them.
What's so unfortunate is that during the referendum campaign, the people who were pushing for us to leave the European Union said a whole lot of contradictory things, and some of which, frankly, as you know, were not true.
Not on the single market.
But no, hang on, Nigel. The Conservative manifesto talks about maintaining full access to the single market. Most people think that full access to the single market is equivalent to membership of the single market. Why is it not?
We haven't actually got a manifesto. manifesto, have we? As you said yourself.
No. The Tory manifesto for the last election.
Oh, but that's gone now. That's gone now. There's a new prime...
So manifestos simply don't matter anymore?
Cameron was campaigning to keep us in the single market. We have voted in a referendum.
No, but he said, but in the manifesto it said, were we to leave the European Union, they would campaign for full access to the single market.
And that changed the campaign.
What this discussion illustrates is something about the whole problem here, which is that the relationship that we have with the EU is essentially quite a dull one, right? It's about trade, it's about tariffs, it's about small print. Nigel very successfully made it an emotional one. He made it about sovereignty and things that people could shout about and get behind, and that's essentially why he won the vote. But actually, it does remain an issue about small print and trade deals and tariff access and all the things you were talking about. And that stuff, to be honest, I think MPs should work that stuff out, because I don't care about it. But I don't understand it, and I don't know about it, and I would rather MPs who basically I fund to talk about that stuff and vote about it, they can do it. Off you go, you do it.
Well, they can obey us, though, can't they? They can obey our instructions.
Well, they still are. They're not voting to cancel Brexit.
What do you want?
Single market, the single market costs us 30 million quid a day and means free movement of people. We have to leave the single market.
Jan, how does this look from America?
Bad, I imagine.
I'm just sitting here...
This is tame compared to America at the moment, isn't it?
I'm sitting here with my consultant hat on and my psychologist hat on and my political, and I'm thinking, I haven't quite understood what Emily is saying, because she's getting into the nitty-gritty, and it strikes me just like I don't understand liberals, because they have all the ideals and how things should be, and how about let's deal with reality? And then my business hat is saying, what does it matter? What, this political correctness of everyone has to have transparency? You don't need to worry about the how or the it's. What you need is the what. What are the key strategic issues? What are most important? And are the majority of the people going to buy into that as the top 3 priorities or 4 priorities? And it's like you want to get bogged down in it.
So can I put it this way then? How I put it this way? How would you feel if a major decision that was going to be made about America, about America's continuing trade relationship with the rest of the world, was just done by Obama and wasn't done by the Senate or the Congress? Because that's what we're talking about.
Oh, we've lived with lots of executive orders.
That's what we're talking about. We're talking about the future of the economy being put in the hands of the executive, and in the American case, it would be Obama. And what Theresa May is saying is she's saying, I want me and a couple of my mates to decide on the future of this country and what the future of our economy is going to be. And if they make the wrong decision, people will lose their jobs. And many people will lose their jobs.
But it seems like you're making all sorts of conclusions before you understand just what the strategic objectives are and whether you can buy into those or not.
The strategic objective is to make sure that we continue to trade with our biggest partner, which is the European Union.
That's what you have to agree. You have to agree to the what, not all the hows.
So I've got to move us on a little bit. So the question I really want to put to you, David was talking about, you know, the passion, the big issues. You've already started to talk about betrayal. You've said that if we don't leave the EU in the way that you think we should leave the EU, you know, we'll see anger of the like we've never seen before. I think what some people wonder is, are you warning about a sort of violence on the streets, or are you inciting violence on the streets?
No. I haven't even talked about violence on the streets. I've said political anger, which needs to be managed and directed sensibly and properly.
So why? Right? And is managing that anger this demonstration against the Supreme Court that you're going to join?
I think peaceful process is a good thing for people to do. I think voting the right way, and given every opportunity that you have, is the right thing to do. What I don't think the right thing to do is to hurl abuse.
But are you trying to intimidate the Supreme Court with this?
Oh no. Look, I mean, looking at the makeup of the Supreme Court and how many European integrationists there are there, I think we know the result already. And that is a real concern.
So why do you want more power for British courts if you think British courts are so corrupt in that way?
I want sovereignty for the British people. And it's absolutely clear to me, we voted to stop sending lots of money, to take back control of our borders, to make our own laws. End of. And it's the government's job to do that. And the strange thing with this is, before this court ruling, actually, everything was settling down very well. A very large number of those who voted Remain were accepting the result and saying, let's get on with it. The economic data has all been pretty good, and I think it's a great shame that we've now been plunged back into uncertainty by people who refuse to accept a democratic result.
It's just nonsense. It's just total nonsense. Our whole system is based on the idea that we have politicians and we have politics and we have power here and we have the courts that are independent. And I have to say, I am outraged that you think that our judges are in any way political or that they should be in any way intimidated or influenced by politics. You want to lead 100,000 people. You now say you want to do it peacefully, whatever, you know, but the reason they're all turning up outside the Supreme Court is in order to try to influence the Supreme Court. What we should be doing is having, as we always have done, we have judges who just simply make decisions about the law and who are not involved in politics. Leave the politics to be for people like you and me, and leave the judges out of it. Because an active
European integrationist.
For heaven's sake.
What does that mean, Nigel? What is an active European integrationist?
He has campaigned for the integration of law at EU level and been a member of several bodies that do so. Look, if I was on a, if I was on a jury and you were being tried,
it
wouldn't happen.
I'd get sent down almost immediately by you.
That is true. But I think there was too much.
And if you try and undermine our courts, where does it end? You know, our courts are a bulwark against people who extremism, and we absolutely need them. And this is completely part of our system. And the idea that you could, for such petty political reasons, try and undermine our courts. I'm sorry to get pompous about this, but it is absolutely what Britain is about. It's about our democracy.
Hence, we should not undermine a very clear referendum result, and we should get on with it.
But is it undermining it? That's all they've done. They haven't said Brexit isn't going to happen.
Because it's delaying it, and we've even, I mean, worse than that, we've even got the Liberal Democrats, who've got 104 life peers. No, I'm not making it up, they have. And they're saying...
Your time will come.
Well, I doubt it. I doubt it, Tim. But they're saying they might try and delay this for up to a year. So what we're seeing at a number of levels is a deliberate, willful attempt to frustrate the result of this referendum.
But not on the level of the judges.
To work,
you know, do not say the judges are involved in some sort of conspiracy to frustrate Brexit. You know, that's what Sajid Javid seemed to be saying, and that was bad enough. You shouldn't be saying it
All
either.
I said was that one judge should not have sat on that panel.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't say that.
Yeah,
you tweeted that after the High Court judgment, you tweeted. I think your exact words were you were questioning the independence of the judiciary.
Questioning it, and in the case of that man, I seriously did.
Look, 48% people voted to stay in, right? So they represent, perhaps, in 3 judges, a cross-section of the population. The Daily Mail was keen to tell you that one of them was an openly gay ex-Olympic fencer, OK? They were keen to provide any information they could, the right-wing press, to try and somehow discredit these judges. The fact that one of them might be a little bit sympathetic towards the EU is not a reason to think that he cannot sit on this thing. There's a cross range of opinion about it.
I think it is.
And they were simply making a decision about what the law was. They looked at the law and they applied the law and they looked at whether or not it was right for us to have our rights taken away without an Act of Parliament. You know, the right to be able to trade across Britain, across Europe, the right to be able to go to France without having to have a visa. You know, these sorts of things are not rights that should be taken away simply by getting the Queen to sign a piece of paper. It should be something that Parliament decides first. That's all they said, and the idea that they should have all this vitriol on their heads and these attempts to intimidate them is simply wrong. And I just say no.
We've had nonsense on both sides, though. We've had all these people criticising judges, and on the other side, we've had people trying to shut up the free press, which is also a particularly bad idea in this country. We should be defending the free press and a bunch of independent judges. Nigel is looking for work.
So on that highly reasonable point, Tim, I think we're going to have to take a quick break.